So we're starting a brand new unit, Unit 8. This is all about statistics and data. So the first thing we're going to talk about is statistical data and dot plots. So when you're collecting data, a question is considered statistical if the answers can vary. So what that means is if you ask a group of people a question and they all give you the same answer, then that is not statistical because the answers are all the same. You want to come up with a question to survey people where everyone's going to say something different. And if that's the case, it's considered a statistical question. So for example, the question, how old is Julie, is not statistical because there's only one answer. The question, what is everyone's favorite color, could be statistical because the answers could be different for every person. In order to graph statistical data, one way of doing it is using a dot plot. A dot plot is a way to organize a lot of data. To make one, you draw a number line and you start with the smallest number and count off to the highest number. Even if there's numbers on your number line that don't have data, you still need to put them on your number line. Then all you do is draw a dot over the number every time it appears in the data set. So for example, let's pretend this is our bunch of data here. We want to make a dot plot for this. So what I'm going to do is draw a dot plot. First thing I'm going to do is find the smallest number and the biggest number. So if I look at my data here, 3 is the smallest, and it looks like 8 is the biggest. So what you would do is draw a number line. It's going to be a pretty bad straight line, but I'm trying my best here. So draw a number line and count from the smallest number to the biggest number. Do a little slash. So 3, actually it's better if you put them on the bottom to be perfectly honest. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to put this one on the bottom so that it lines up with all the others. So then what you do is you go through and you count how many 3s are in the data. So it looks like we have 1 3. So I use X's. I like X's better. So even though it's called a dot plot, you usually use X's. Then we want to count 4s. There's only 1 4, so I'll put 1 X over it. 5s, there's only 1 5. 6, there are 2 of them. So what happens is you stack them. So 2 X's. 7 has 1 2 3 4 7s. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 8 has 1. And that's it. They're pretty easy. So you start at the smallest number in your data and you count all the way to the biggest number in your data, and you put a dot or an X, actually, even though it's called the dot plot, you put an X over that number however many times you see it in the data set. You also want to label it. So this one, I'm just going to label it numbers because there's really nothing that the data is telling us about. If we were talking about like baskets at a basketball game or whatever, like somebody got 7 shots, somebody got 6, and so forth, you would label it basketball baskets. But since it doesn't have data, I'm just going to put numbers. To read a dot plot, so say you're like given a dot plot and you're not given this. So let's say like this wasn't given to us and only the picture down here was. It says to read a dot plot, you count the total number of dots or X's to figure out how much data was collected. So let's say this wasn't given to us and just this was, and we wanted to know how many people were in the survey. You would count your X's. So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you would say 10 people were surveyed. Okay, if they were asked who the most scores out of it or whatever, you would say 7 because it has more X's out of everything else. And that's how you would read a dot plot. So they're pretty simple. So I'm going to give you guys some to do on the big ideas now.